Wow. Awesome stuff. Cool. Everybody's ready. So the magic question, I wonder if our special guest is ready. And just before I get him to chat, guys, I want to give you a very short introduction to who this gentleman is. I had the privilege and the pleasure of meeting this individual in 2014, and I kept on hearing about him. I kept on hearing about this really sharp business guy that's literally joined WorldVentures at the beginning of WorldVentures, the launch in Australia in June 2014. Personally recruited by one of the three musketeers, Savas Christophia, which you guys all know, I'm sure. The first $1 million ring earner outside of the US, the first double IMDs outside of the US. So Savas recruited this gentleman. He knew him from previously, and all I kept on hearing is this guy Shane's gonna do some big things. He's gonna do some big things. And I remember meeting him, and Shane came on board and just started really building fast, guys. I mean, already running a very successful business from the Gold Coast. A business that was doing annual revenue of about $20 to $25 million in revenue. So you can imagine running a very successful business like that. Very busy guy, but very sharp businessman. Comes into WorldVentures, hits director in something like 45 or 47 days. Hits marketing director in less than 90 days. Less than 90 days he hits marketing director part-time. I mean, this guy just came and, he's the true example of no excuses, just getting things done. And I remember meeting him, and he left such an impression on me because I kept on hearing all these really, really big things about him. But the first impression that I got from him is that this guy is the most gentle, down-to-earth man that I've ever met in my life. It's just all heart. The kind of person that you just meet and instantly trust. And I could see why this guy was having huge success. And I mean, that was just the beginning of his story. He's officially become the first IMD in the history of Australia in just over 2 years. But I don't want to take anything away from his story. And I want to bring him up. And Shane, if you can unmute yourself so we can make sure that we
How are you, Mr. Efrosyni?
Mr. Anderson,
how are you,
welcome. We can hear you loud and clear. Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule, champion, to be on this webinar with us. We've got a lot of people jumping on from a lot of different countries that can't wait to hear about your story. So I'm just going to pass it over to you, my dear.
Fantastic. Do you mind if I stick the cam on? Is that all right? You guys
of course.
Can see my ugly...
Even better.
Let's see if that works. Is it going to let me? No, it's not going to let me.
Hang on, let me see if I can do it from my side.
Right. That's okay. No, it's asking me. I've got to handle permission, so that's okay. We won't see it. That's all right. That's me there on the screen. I'm wearing the same shirt, so you're not missing much. See? So, how is everybody tonight? Thank you very much, Efrosyni, for such kind words. It's honestly, it's always an honour when I get the opportunity to repay just a small little bit of what you've helped me over the last couple of years. So when you asked me to jump on the webinar, I was only just too happy, and I hope everybody knows that. And I have seen everybody come up there, and from Cyprus and Lithuania and England and down in Melbourne. Hopefully, I've seen you at the regional. And honestly, I hope you guys understand how privileged you are to be in the corner with one of the absolute heavyweights, the heavy hitters in WorldVentures, Miss Efrosyni, because I can tell you right now, I wouldn't be where I was today if it wasn't without you. So thank you very much, Efrosyni.
Thank you, Shane.
And honestly, guys, I want to...
Your line is now muted.
A little bit of... there's Andrea. Thank you very much. At the regional, yes, that was fantastic. That was a really, really good event. We went down and did the regional event in Melbourne just a couple of weeks ago with Max Tay, and it was a sensational day, and I think everybody got a lot out of it, which was great. And I'll try and give as much value to you guys as I can tonight. And First of all, what I'd like to do, if that's okay, is I'll just give you a little bit of background about who I am, where I come from, so that you can get an understanding about where I was. So, effectively, I'm born on the east coast of Australia in a place called the Gold Coast. It's like a little bit of a surfing town. Well, it was back when I was born in the late 70s and mid 70s. So what happened for us is, I come from a background where it's a bit of a single. My mum was a single mum, and we didn't have a whole lot back then. We went into what they call housing commission estates back then. It's basically government housing. I'm not sure what they call it in where you are from, but I'm sure you have some sort of version of that. And we were in this position where my mum was working really hard. I'll never ever say that she didn't. She worked her guts out. She would work a lot of hours, and she was just doing her best to try and keep us above water. And what happened for me was, at the age of about 13, 14 years old, I started to get a job. I started to work, and the reason I was working was obviously we were sinking. We were thrown out of a housing commission estate. So, like, if you know how hard that is to do, I mean, like that's a real effort. I mean, like, those things require so little money. They actually just basically charge you. It's nearly like the tax on the house. It's like nothing else. So it's not really rent. And for some reason, we still couldn't manage that. And as it turned out, we got thrown out. So what happened was that we ended up moving into a caravan. And I remember being at the age of 14 and sort of going out and getting a job. And it started off as part-time, and it turned into basically a full-time job. I was working at a bakery, and I remember going to work at 3 a.m. in the morning, and then sort of coming home around about 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, and trying to go to work, trying to go to school. So it didn't happen very often. So in one semester, I had 92 days off, which is a bit of an accomplishment just on itself. And I was always very heavily into my football and used to love playing footy as a kid, and I was pretty good at it. And I used to go to school just for football, basically. That was pretty much the only reason I was going to school at that time, was for football and to hang out with some friends. And then that didn't really last. And at the age of about 15 and a half, I was out of school. I was gone. So it wasn't really looking up for me at that stage. I can promise you that there was no, like, if you asked any of my football coaches or anything like that back then, if they would have been told that I would have been on the news or anything like that, it would probably be for all the wrong reasons, not for all the right reasons. I was a bit of a roughhead. I was, growing up on the wrong side of town, and I was growing up with the wrong role models, and I had the wrong people around me teaching me the wrong things. And what happened was that I took that on board. Now, you've heard the story that you're the average of your five closest friends. Well, I was exactly that. I was the average of the 5 people that were closest to me, and that wasn't a pretty sight. So in the back of my mind, let me just explain what was going through the back of my mind. The back of my mind, I could feel, and I'm sure some of you guys do too, that there was something else for me, though. That this wasn't it, that this was just part-time. I was just doing things part-time to get where I needed to be. I was only struggling to make ends meet until this lucky break was going to come along, and then all of a sudden everything was going to change, and away I go. I'd be okay for that. And what happened for me, I was very lucky that I grew up with a single mum, but I grew up with grandparents. Now, my grandparents used to read a lot, so I was always a very big reader, and I remember reading a couple of books that really started to change my world. One of them was 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. Now, at the time, I couldn't even finish the book, but it left such an impression on me that all of a sudden I started to realize that, okay, well, if I need to change my habits, I need to change the people around me to get something different. So I ended up going and getting a 30-day Tony Robbins personal power program. Now, this was on cassette, okay? So I am showing my age a bit here. But what happened was that I went through 30 days of this personal power, and this basically what it did in a nutshell was it got you to start taking an action, and then over the course of 30 days, you would just build on that action and it would create like a momentum ball. And what happened for me was about day 9, I was in business for myself. I was at the age of 19 at this stage, and I started my own business, and I was going out and I was going to conquer the world, right? So away we go. So I get in my car business, and away we go from there. Now, nothing really happens for the next 20 years. So it does happen. Trust me, I meet a beautiful lady and we go away and we do a few things. But as far as my personal business growth goes, nothing really changed a hell of a lot over 20 years. What happened was I was earning fairly good money in the car business. When I say good money, I felt like I was earning fairly good money. I was earning about 150,000 a year, and to me that was suitable. That was above where probably other people had expected me to earn. So I was sitting very comfortable. And we went away and we did a storm here in Australia. We did hailstorms, fixed cars. Sorry, just to explain. And my brother actually asked me a question. He said to me, why have you never built a big business? And I can tell you right now, it struck a nerve with me. This was in 2000, and we're fast forward, right? So this is 2012. This is 4 years ago. Now, he asked me, why have you never built a big business? And I thought to myself, you know what? I remember being a kid and sort of looking at it and thinking one day I'll do it, but I never did it. And by this stage, I was at the age of 38, so I was 2 years, getting very close to my 40th birthday, and I was really considering that question. I just couldn't understand why it was that I had left it go for so long, and I felt like I was in a bit of a routine, and everything was okay, but it wasn't where I had expected, and I just didn't understand why. So what happened for me was I ended up going to another Tony Robbins event. Now, this is the first time I'd actually ever seen him live. Now, I hadn't done anything with Tony Robbins for 20 years. So I hadn't done anything since I was 19. Now I'm 38, 39 years old going to this Tony Robbins event. So, and at this event, I run into a guy called Savas. Now, you talk about the world conspiring, right? So Savas and his brother, Christos, show me a concept called WorldVentures. And I get about 5 minutes through the video and I'm like, mate, with all due respect, I can't even understand what you're saying at this point. Like, probably most of you people can't understand what I'm saying. So I was like, mate, with all due respect, I came here to build my car business and to build a big car business, not change businesses. Sorry, it's not for me. And I turned him down. So I turned him down. That was in June 2014. So anyway, so fast forward another year, and by this stage, I'm heavily into personal development. Now, I've started with the Tony Robbins, what they call the Platinum Group, which is a group of elite business owners that get to travel with Tony, and you get exclusive access and all of that. But at the end of the day, the reason I joined it was proximity was power. I knew that if I surrounded myself with really high-end people, that they would demand the very best of me, and I would be able to reach at least my potential. Okay, that was my concept behind it. And I knew that if I reached my potential, I had more in the tank than what I was currently showing. So anyway, so I joined the Platinum Group and away we go, right? So the first trip was over in France. Now, I'm in the car repair industry. One of the things that they said in France was, the first trip was in Sun Valley in the United States. And one of the things that they said in Sun Valley was that they showed us these guys from Google had invented this little thing that was going to automate car travel. Now, you're currently seeing this come out across the world as we speak. Uber's invested heavily in automated cars. Google has as well. And basically, cars will be driving by computers. Now, that sounds all well and dandy, except if you own car repair shops, which I do. So I looked at it and I thought, wow, like all of a sudden, my great idea of car repairs might not be so great. If you take 85% of the cars smashing off the road, then whereabouts does that leave me? Like, where does my business turn from there? And I ask you guys, and I'm telling you this story, I want you to understand that what you're currently doing, I don't care whether you're a teacher, a doctor, you're in some sort of service industry, ask yourself what technology they could bring out which could completely dismiss what you're currently doing. And I'm sure that there is something out there, even if you're, as I say, even if you're a doctor, even if you're a teacher, you're a scientist, whatever, it doesn't matter who it is. If you're a service industry, I guarantee you that there's the technology out now that can nearly put you out of a job. So I started looking around for something else, and my next trip was to the country of France. And we were sitting there and we had the chance to drive these supercars, and lo and behold, I run into Savas. Now, I haven't seen Savas for 2 years, and the last time I seen him, he showed me this little holiday thing. So I said, hey mate, how you going? Like, blah, blah, blah. We start talking, and we had the chance to drive these supercars. So I said to Savas, what car do you want to drive? And he goes, well, I really want to drive the Lamborghini because I've got 3 Ferraris. Now, that got my attention, right? That really did sort of slap me around the face. So I was like, you've got 3 Ferraris? Yeah. Mate, show me. So he shows me a picture of these cars. Now, as he's showing me a picture of his Ferrari, of course, he's skipping through the picture of his Porsche, his picture of his BMW, the picture of the Mercedes, etc., etc. Now, as a car guy, this might not approach to everybody, but as a car guy, I'm sitting there going, what the heck, right? I'm supposed to be the smart one here, and I'm still driving a Toyota Hilux, which is like a truck here in Australia, right? And I'm like thinking, is this guy kidding me or what? And you've got 3 Ferraris and you've got that. Is that friggin' business that you showed me a couple of years ago? And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Mate, you're going to have to show me again. And his answer was a classic. His answer was, mate, no, not at the moment. I'm on holidays. He shut me down. He said no. So I said, okay, all right, fair enough. So he goes, I'll make a meeting to talk to you via Skype when you get home. So that's what happened. Now, we chat via Skype. I seen the idea, I jumped on board. Probably still didn't realise how big it was for a couple of weeks. And then all of a sudden, I realised something very, very cool. I realised that this was a duplication business. So unlike traditional business, where you've got to go and do everything yourself, in this business, I only had to go out, find some people, help them get some people, and help them get some people, and all of a sudden I'd be up and running. So I never overcomplicated this business. So you've got to remember, at this stage, my car business is still probably only taking around $200,000, right? So my car business has not grown that dramatically at this point. What had happened was that there was a shift in my head. Now, when I started, and as Efrosyni mentioned, I actually went to senior rep in 13 or 14 days, and then all of a sudden I was a director in 47 days, and all I did was I duplicated. So I went out and I got
Your line is now unmuted.
He goes on to get 2014 Rookie of the Year. He goes out and starts to pump in 800-900 people into the business. And on my other side, I had a guy by the name of Gary come in, Gary NG, who's now reached the rank of RMD. He goes out and starts smashing it as well. And all of a sudden, everything was dandy. I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like, everything just took off. Now, I know that sounds like a little bit of a fluke, but the key for me, what I did was I duplicated. I didn't try and go out and sign up 1,000 people myself. That wasn't what I did. I went and got my core people, and then I made sure that I invested the time into them as well to make sure that they had their core people, and then their people had their people. So I was investing back into the business. Now, that's why I grew so fast. Now, all of a sudden, I'm a marketing director, and with my car business, I know my car business was valued at $200,000 or something at that point. Now, and the reason I mention that is because it had a 10 times multiplier over the next 10 years, over the next 1 year, over the next 12 months. And the reason I say that is because I no longer had my car business like I I used to treat it like it was my baby, like I needed it to survive, or if it died, I'd die with it, right? And I treated my car business with such respect that I choked it. The choke point in that car business was nothing other than me. Now, once I removed myself from that choke point, the car business flourished. It flourished, and it's still flourishing today. And the reason I can say that these little steps that I did with WorldVentures is the reason it gave me the confidence to be able to do that with my car business. So what I've always wanted to do was run a big business. Now I get the opportunity to do that, and I do that successfully based on the fact that I'm not living with a fear that my traditional business would die, because if it did, I still had a plan B. My plan B was WorldVentures. Now, over the past 12 months, that's probably shifted. So plan B is now the car repair business. Plan A for me is the WorldVentures. And the reason being is because of the energy that's involved with WorldVentures, because of the ability to just build out the way it is. It's creative, it's fun, I enjoy it, and I love every minute of it. So I know that hearing my story might sound strange, but I want you to be able to associate what it is in your life. What is it that's holding you back? What is it that's holding you back? I'm going to ask you the same question that my brother asked me. I'm sure somewhere deep inside of you, you wanted to run a big business. So what is it that held you back? Why are you not an IMD? What is it about what fear or what stoppage is actually contained you to play small? And you have to answer that for yourself. I mean, you've got a piece of paper in front of you here, and most people, when they start to think about that question, they actually write down an answer. I can tell you right now, it's not the real answer. The real answer is hidden under about 5 layers. So what you have to do is you have to ask yourself, what is it that's holding you back? Write that down, and then say, what else is holding you back? And write that down, and then say, what else? And just keep digging deeper. And if you dig down about 5 to 6 levels, you'll start to get to a point where you actually start to delve into your actual core, and you'll find out the reason, the little snippet that is holding you back from actually being able to succeed. You see, to become an IMD is not difficult, but you have to become an IMD before you reach IMD. So you don't get what you want, you get who you are. This is very, very important. And anyone that was at the regionals, I've said this many times, you don't get what you want, you get who you are. You need to become the IMD first. When you become the IMD first, then the rest of the universe conspires and gives you what you need. You get the right people, you find the right approach, you find the right way to do the invite. Everything else becomes secondary because you're already at that level. I can tell you with confidence that I know Efrosyni will be an IMD. Why? Because she is already an IMD. She's already there. In her head, she's there. It's just that she's probably just a little bit behind on the numbers on one side. And that's nothing. That is ridiculous to even think that would be stopping her from being an IMD. She's already there. Now I ask you, what is stopping you at this moment from just deciding tonight, right? On the what's the date here tonight? We've got the 28th of August here in Australia. I'm not sure where it is where you are, but the 28th of August, write that down at the top of your page. And then right underneath it, today is the day that I choose to be an IMD. And don't do it with just, this is a bit of fluff. This is your life. You have to understand that this is the opportunity for you to decide to become an IMD. Now, there was a moment for me in WorldVentures where I had a choice where I could either play small at around about the director level. We got to director, and then we started to get to marketing director, and we got to marketing director in 92 days. And after that, there was a point where my business slowed nearly to a stop, and it started going backwards. Now, there was a point where I could have gone, well, that was really a lot of fun. Let's just pull the pin here. Or I push on through and go all through, right through to IMD. Now, a lot of people probably would do more for others than what you would do for yourself. If you're anything like me, I would actually do more for other people than what I ever would for myself. So what I did was, the way I convinced myself to go through to IMD was, I had a look at everybody that was in there, and I recalled the promises that I had already laid out to these people. I had already laid out to certain people that I had promises. There was promises there that I had told them that this is what I was going to do. This is what I was going to be. This is who I was going to be. This is the IMD level. We were going to reach the top rank, not just me, but you too. And I made promises, and I could not go back on my word. I just couldn't. I looked at that and I thought to myself, no matter what happens, it's harder now to stop than what it is to go forward. It's harder now to tell people that I've decided to quit and do something else than what it is to just go all the way through and become an IMD. Does that make sense? So I'd made the promises. I'd already written down my goals. I'd already told people my future, and it was impossible for me to backtrack now and dismiss my own integrity and go back on my word than what it was to just go forward. So that was the key for me. So there was a moment there where I had that moment where I thought, maybe at this point it's easier for me to drop out. But then when I pushed through and looked at all the promises that I made everybody, it was impossible for me to back out. I needed to go through. And that was the decision that right there and then that I said, okay, this is enough. I'm going to hit RMD. We pushed very hard to get to RMD. And I wanted to make sure that I got to RMD before the big event that we had here in Australia, which was boot camp. And I pushed and pushed and pushed. And there was a couple of nights there, which was basically completely just sleepless nights. I just pushed and pushed and pushed. And I actually got to RMD on the way to the senior rep meeting on the Friday night before boot camp. So as we drove into boot camp, I had reached RMD. I got the phone call through that the last one had come through. And I went to the senior rep meeting completely happy in knowledge that I was going to walk the stage again as an RMD. Because one of the things that I talk about promises to your team. One of the things that I promised all the way through was that I would walk the stage at every event, not for own self-satisfaction. This is going to sound bizarre if you think, oh, okay, well, you just did it just so you feel good about yourself. It wasn't about that. In fact, as an Aussie guy, it's probably the least thing that I would be more comfortable with. If you ever hear me speak if I train like this, I feel very comfortable. I feel very fluid. But if you ask me to do a testimonial, and I've got to do a testimonial for IMD, obviously, I freak out. And the reason being is because as an Aussie guy, it's not natural to speak about myself. Okay, it's not natural to give yourself a boost, as they say. It's nearly frowned upon in our culture and other cultures, especially in England as well. So it does become a little difficult for me to do a testimonial. But if I train, I feel very comfortable because I feel like I'm contributing. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I made a pact that I would walk the stage at every event. The reason being is because I wanted my team to be able to say that I was leading from the front. That was the goal. I needed to make sure that they understood that every time that we went to an event, they seen me walk the stage in a new rank so that they knew that it was okay for them to do the same. That it was okay for them to step up. It was the path was laid down. And so for me, changing to R&D, that was a very hard push, and Efrosyni will be able to back that up. I mean, that was probably coming into the couple of weeks to get to R&D was very, it was probably the hardest I've ever worked in WorldVentures. So we get to R&D, and then I remember walking off the stage, and there was a gentleman that we had there called by the name of Byron Schrag. Okay, if you've never seen Byron, he's a big bald-headed guy from Texas, big unit. And we were sitting on stage, and everybody was there, and everybody was being so friendly and praising me, and the whole crowd was cheering, and all my team were there, and my wife was there, and it was just fantastic. And I remember walking off the stage, and as I got down the stairs, Byron did something to me that I'll never forget. He punched me in the chest, and I swear to God, he knocked me completely out of my pattern. I was in a state of awe. I was in this state of glee and filled with love. And he just went bang, he hit me. And just all of a sudden, in a split second, I snapped back to reality. And I remember him leaning over to me and saying, mate, it's your opportunity now. You need to go all the way through to IMD. Scott, you can have a night to celebrate, but then tomorrow you're back on. And I remember it vividly because I walked out from the curtain and everyone was still in this state of happiness. And I had my pattern broken. So I was nearly ready to go outside and start building straight away. And we went straight out. We basically went build, and I went all the way through, and I needed to make sure that I walked the stage at the next event. The next event was United in Orlando in January. So we went over to Orlando. That's me, actually, the photo that you see on the screen, that's me accepting the NMD award plus the $100,000 ring earner award. So I stood on stage twice, and it was my birthday, and 22,000 people sung me happy birthday, which is always pretty cool and going to be hard to top. So that was an amazing experience as well. So we're still talking less than 2 years I've been in the business, right? So at this stage, this was only a year and a half that I've been in the business. This is in January 2016, this year. And what I'm saying this for is because it did not take a long time to do. If you hear anything in my story, there was a 20-year lull, but at the age, June 2014 is when I joined WorldVentures. So in less than 2 years, everything has changed. Everything has changed so dramatically. It's sometimes hard to fathom. And then, of course, I pushed right through to IMD. It took a little longer than I had expected, but I ended up getting there in July of 2016, a month after the 2-year anniversary. I wanted to try and beat that 2 year, but it didn't happen. But I got there in July, and I remember the night when I reached IMD. You probably think that I was going to have this great celebration. I actually felt relieved. I felt relieved in a sense that it had the opportunity to actually sort of do what I had said. So I knew that I could sleep easy knowing that I'd got to IMD. But the key for me was this. That was never my goal. It wasn't for me to get to IMD. It was to prove to others that it could be done, right? So that was step one. Step two was making sure that other people did it. That was the key. That was the actual goal. So IMD for me was a stepping stone. And because I'd reached for a higher goal than that, I want to make sure that I had, at least 10, 15, 20, 30 IMDs underneath me. That's my goal. I want to make sure, especially after meeting some of the people from Hong Kong, that I have 100 IMDs underneath me. That would be where I would want to be. And we want to create a factory. We want to be able to do that and make sure that every single person that joins WorldVentures has the opportunity to go all the way through to IMD. So although I've told you this massive story, I want you to concentrate on 3 key moments. When I joined WV, it wasn't, the first time I seen it, it wasn't my time. Now, there's a lot of people out there that you've shown the business to, and you need to understand that sometimes it's just not the right moment for that person. George Giorgio sent it 17 times, okay? I only sent it twice, so I'm a little bit up on him. But make sure that you never take anybody off your list, ever, all right? Step 2 for me was I just got 6 and duplicated those 6. The duplication was the key. My action of duplicating was more important than what I did either side of that, okay? So duplication is the key in this business. And then step 3 for me was the training. Every single training I went to, every single training I walked the stage. I made a commitment to those around me that at every single training from here on in, I was going to walk the stage as a different rank or different money level, okay? And I made that commitment and I stuck fast on that. I worked my tail off to be able to get that to fruition. So what you guys need to do is this. We've got regional trainings all around the world at the moment. You've got massive Super Saturdays here in Australia coming up on September 3rd. You need to be at every single training. And in the past, we usually say, congratulations, look at this person. They're going to the View or they're going to boot camp. You don't need that. You don't need a pat on the back to go to training. This is your life, okay? You need to make sure that you make a commitment right now to yourself, no one else, but to yourself, to say that every single training event from now on in you'll be at. Because I can tell you with certainty that nobody that ever got to the top of this business skipped a training. No one skipped a training. It's the 1% plays. It's the plays that you see behind the ball. Like, I get asked all the time, why are you going to the next training? I can nearly recite most of them. But the fact is I will always be there. I will be there because I lead from example. Does that make sense? And even when you don't have somebody following you, you still lead. You lead as if there's a whole team behind you. And then one day you'll turn around and there'll be a whole bunch of people behind you chanting the way. And that's the key. You don't get what you want. You get who you are. So become the person that you want to be now, the 28th of August. Choose today to be the day that you decide. And then from then on, everything will be easy. Are you there, Miss Efrosyni?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Did you want to ask any questions as well?
Just two questions, if it's all right with you, Shane. One, what was one of the biggest either learning experiences that you had with WorldVentures, or maybe the biggest challenge that you experienced on your journey for you?
Probably for me, it was after marketing director, I decided to go into management mode. Now, management mode is very different than helping other people get their six. So for me, management mode was sitting back and watching the numbers. And by the time they slowed down, it was way too late. In this business, you have at least a 30 to 60 day delay on what you're doing to what you get. So if you're out there working your tail off now, in 30 to 60 days, you'll get to see those results. In the same way as if you stop today, you won't see the numbers stop until it's 30 days too late. And it takes you another 30 or 60 days of hard work to get them working again. So probably the biggest regret or the biggest thing that I would change is I would not have taken my foot off the accelerator after marketing director. I should have just pushed all the way through.
Absolutely. Awesome. And one more thing, I know that we've got people I can see from all countries, all markets, we've got some people that are really, really making things happen. And, when you said that you went into management mode and you basically needed to break through, what was the one thing that you did for you?
So how I broke through was this. I know this is going to sound very simple, but this is probably my key. I went right back to the very beginning. I found the identical thing that I got at the start. The thing that I did at the very beginning was I went and got 6 people, and then I helped them get 6 new people. So that was my ultimate goal. For me to get back to where I needed to be, I had to roll all the way back and do the simple things correct. Mm-hmm. So once I rolled back and did the simple things, everything else fell into place.
Perfect. Awesome. And just one last piece of advice. We've obviously got the View coming up right now in Australia. It's literally we're 4.5 weeks away from the View in Sydney. Actually 5 weeks away. And for Berlin, we're about 2 months away. So I know there's a lot of people right now that are pushing for rank so they can get recognized at the View. So what would you do if you were in their position and you were pushing for rank in the next 5 weeks or 2 months?
Yeah, well, this is the absolute key. See, the thing is, if you make a commitment to those around you, and I would tell a few people around you, people that are in your team, but also the ones that aren't in your immediate circle, make commitments that you can't break. And then for me, that was more important now that I had to keep my word. So it made me accountable. It's about accountability. See, the thing is, for you to get to the next rank is not difficult. It's not a difficult thing to do, but it's also not easy. Now, I say that with, I'm not trying to speak out both sides of my mouth. I'm saying that the actions to do it are not difficult. They're very simple, but it's not an easy task because you're going to face things like rejection. You're going to face things like people, having an opinion of you, judgment, and you're going to face your fears. What I'm suggesting for this is make the leverage on yourself harder to fail than what it is to lose. So at the moment, it's easier for you to lose because you have no one that you're accountable to. But what happens if you spoke to your kids and told them, I'm going to do this, and when I do, we're going to Disneyland. What happens if then all of a sudden you're accountable? How are you going to look at your kids and say, well, how am I supposed to tell them that I couldn't go because I was scared that Uncle John was going to tell me no? Make yourself accountable. Put yourself in a position, stick yourself in a corner where there's no way out. I mean, I heard a story one time, and I'm sure everybody's heard it, about Alexander the Great. He stood on the desk, and they arrived in Persia, and all the Persians were standing there with these brilliant weapons, and this army that was well fed, and Alexander the Great had all this army that was malnutrition, and their armor was not the best, and they weren't feeling great. And they'd been on boats, and they were in no position to fight. And they stood on the beach, and the generals turned to them and said, we've got to retreat. And he said, just burn the boats, right? There's an F word that I didn't throw in there, but just burn the boats. And he told them all to burn the boats because in his mind, there's only one way forward. It's forward. There's only one way forward, and it's forward. If we're going to die on the beach, then we die on the beach. But if we're going to get off the beach, we have to take the damn beach. So burn the boats. And what I'm saying to you is it's about time. The only way for you to go forward from this point is it's time for you to burn the boats. It's time for you to say enough's enough. Stop giving yourself an easy way out. Stop giving yourself a way home. Burn the boats. Make yourself accountable. Tell people what you're going to do. Demand the very best of yourself. Give yourself enough leverage so that there's no way that you can fail. And I promise you, if you go into the day with that mindset, your days will stack up. 30 days of consistent effort will produce a lot more action than you'll ever be able to realize. You get yourself to the view, you get yourself walking on the stage, and make sure that when you do, you celebrate for one night, and the next day you get up and you do it all again.
Thank you very much, Shane. Actually, the last piece that you said, I remember when Johnny Wimbrick called me when I hit RMD, and he called me and he said to me, awesome sis, congratulations. And then he said, no time to celebrate, time to get back to work, or take only tonight as your night to celebrate, but tomorrow straight back to work. And that's magic right there, actually, because I think sometimes people take a pause to bask in their own glory. But when you got momentum, it's probably the most precious thing you're ever going to get. And that's the point where we need to actually accelerate even faster and push them even harder. So pure gold. Thank you very much, Shane. Guys, there you have it.
Thank you.
An amazing webinar. Now, I believe we also have a recording of it, so I will be posting the recording in the next 24 hours. If you got any team members that didn't make it on this webinar, by all means, feel free to share the webinar along, pass on the love, because that was a very powerful webinar. Thank you once again, Shane. And guys, beginning of the new month, countdown until the view, life will truly never be the same. Enjoy.
Thank you, Efrosyni. Good night, everybody.